Hello everyone, I am Nisha Nandani, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Hindustan Institute of Technology, Coimbatore. Today we are going to see lecture video on clean code. Today's learning, objective of today's learning, clean code, how to write clean code, characteristic of clean code, principles of clean code, what is good code, what is bad code, and the last one is meaningful names. So what is clean code? Clean code is a code that is easy to understand, easy to change and easy to modify. Use easy names for variables and methods. The clean code should be understandable by the creator and to anyone else. Here, what does understandable mean? Understandable means that well-formatted code, proper flow, understand relationship between program objects. And clean coding is the art of writing code that is easy to read, maintain and scale. It involves following best practices, naming conventions and formatting standards to create software that is initiative and efficient. Next, how to write clean code. Clean code is not language specific. Always write readable format. Use meaningful names for variables, functions and methods. One function only performs one specific task. Review code regularly. Clean code is not language specific. Yes, clean code is not specific to any programming language. Clean code is based on principles that apply across languages rather than on rules specific to a particular language. It always write a readable format. Always write readable format is a format that is easily understood and manipulated by humans. It can be represented in a human readable text-based format which offers many advantages including conciseness, flexibility, portability and ease of annotation. Use meaningful names for variables, functions and methods. Here, meaningful names means use intention revealing names, avoid disinformation, make meaningful distinction and use pronounceable names. Use intention revealing names, the names of variable, functions, class, etc. It should tell you why it is exist, what it does and how it is used. Avoid disinformation. Programmers must avoid leaving false clues that obscure the meaning of code. Then use pronounceable names. Use pronounceable names and searchable names. If you can't pronounce a name, it requires an effort of lookup to understand when a name is pronounceable. Make meaningful distinction. It is an application you can easily end up with meaning that is similar even if you try to make a clear distinction between. One function only performs one specific task and then you review the code regularly. And the next topic is characteristics of clean code. Clean code should be readable, it is easy to understand, easy to modify. Then clean code should be elegant, it should be simple and easy to understand. It should be easy to understand, easy to change and easy to taken care of. Clean code should run on all the tests. Meaningful names, deep listing, follow a naming convention, dry, don't repeat yourself. First one is meaningful names. Always use a meaningful name for variables, functions and others. Deep nesting. Sometimes we use nested loops that are difficult to understand. The way to handle that is to extract all loops into separate functions instead. Follow a naming convention to create precise and meaningful naming conventions. Here the dry concept is used to don't repeat yourself. The core one is repeated to used in another way. And also avoid duplication of code by identifying and extracting common functionality into reusable components. Here, deep nested code can be difficult to read and maintain. There's some tips for writing clean code that can help you avoid deep nesting. The first one is use descriptive names. The second one is use empty lines, limit function parameters. Use descriptive names. Choose names for variables, functions and classes that reflect their purpose and behavior. For example, instead of using name RN, you could use name physician or last name physician. The next one is use empty lines. Empty lines to separate the variable's declarations from the function's operation and to identify where function ends. The next one is naming convention. Here, the naming convention is a framework for naming files or other items in a consistent and descriptive way. The purpose of a naming convention is to make it easier to identify and retrieve items and to keep things organized. Here, some other tips used in the naming conventions. Be descriptive. Use a naming convention to describe the contents of the file. Be consistent. Use the same naming convention throughout your organization. And the next one is specific about casing. Be clear about how you are using casing. And the last one is include unique identifiers. You are include any unique identifiers such as a case number or project title. The next one is dry. Don't repeat yourself. It is a software development best practice that aims to reduce code duplication and repetitive patterns. Avoid duplication of code by identifying and extracting common functionality into reusable components. The goal is to have a single authoritative representation of knowledge within a system. Here we are using the dry concept. The benefits are improves maintainability, reduces complexity and minimizes the risk of bugs. Where it is used means the techniques are use methods, classes, inheritance and interface to create clean, modular and reusable code. Here some examples of used in dry principles are code readability, code maintainability and reducing technical department. Importance of clean code. Readability. Clean code is easier for developers to understand, reducing the time and effort required for onboarding, debugging and collaboration. Maintainability. Well-structured commented code makes it simpler to update, refactor and extend the software over time. The last one is scalability. Clean coding practices enable the code base to grow and adapt to new requirements without becoming unwieldy or difficult to manage. Readability is how easy or difficult it is used to read a written text. It is a key factor in user experience and accessible content builds trust with your audience. Readability depends on both the presentation and context. The first one is presentation. The typographic aspects that affect legibility like font size, line height, character spacing and line length. The next one is context. The words and sentences on the page including the complexity of its vocabulary and syntax. Other factors that affect readability include the use of headings and paragraphs, the length of sentences, the familiarity of the text and the styling. It is important for people who don't have high reading comprehension. It is also important when developing web content as it increases comprehension for the reader. Maintainability is the degree to which an application can be understood, repaired or enhanced. Writing clean and maintainable code is important because it can make your code bases more understandable, modifiable and scalable. Some best practices are use descriptive variable names. The variable name should indicate what the variable is presenting. The next one is write modular and reusable code. Write code that can be reused in other parts of your application. Use consistent formatting. Follow a consistent coding style throughout your application. The formatting is horizontal formatting and vertical formatting. Use comments and documentation effectively. The comments and documentation to make your code easier to understand. The next one is scalability. Scalability is the ability of code to handle increasing demands without compromising performance, reliability, or maintainability. Clean code is a code that works well over time and it is easy to read, modify, and extend. Scalable means emphasize readability, reduce coupling, increase cohesion, embrace modularity, place functions in services or helpers. Scalable code is essential for creating software that can adapt to changing needs and expectations. The next one is good code. Good code is well structured, easy to understand and maintain the code. It prioritizes readability, efficiency and security. Here the readable good code is easy to understand and follow even for someone who didn't write it. Good code is a code that is efficient, sustainable and predictable and it can be easily maintained and understood by others. Some characteristics of good codes are readability, maintainability, scalability and also the structure and architecture. Here clear and concise. The code uses simple and understandable language. We already know that clean code is not a language specific. We are using Python, C, C++, Java, the languages etc. and it is well documented. The comments and documentation explain the code's purpose and functionality. Then readability, the good code is easy to understand by the author and others and has a consistent coding style. Maintainability, we already know it is easy to maintain and can live beyond the sprint was written for. The scalability, it is performing both readability and maintainability and can perform well under load and can adapt to change. The good code structure and architectures are, it has a well thought out structure and architecture that make it easy to manage state. The last one is naming convention. Good code uses proper naming conventions use pronounceable names, invention names and naming conventions. Modularization, good code uses modularization. Process for writing excellent code. If you start the project, the first one is write code. Can you use the code to make money? If yes means the code is excellent. If no means the code is written back to the code. What is bad code? Poor coding standard and style, complex and not straightforward, duplicate function, no documentation, unnecessarily use of loops and jump statements, take lot of items and resource to execute than usual. Bad code is a code that is difficult to understand, maintain or write well. It can be more than just minor bugs or syntax errors. Some of the examples of bad codes are complex, poorly structured, lacking documentation, duplicating, excessive dependencies, insisting naming. The first one is complex. Solutions that are overly intricate for simple problems. Poorly structured, the code that lacks logical organization and the more number of lines, the styles are different. Lacking documentation, code that does not have enough explanations or comments. And then duplicative, code that has repeated snippets that could be streamlined. It should be repeated in loops and take a lot of times and resource to execute than usual. Untested, the code that is untested and it is hard to read. Non-initiative variables means the code that has not initiative variable names. Some practices that can lead to bad code include coding without planning or standards and following bad design principles, over architecting and not using shortcuts. We know about what is good code and what is bad code, and the difference between good code and bad codes are, good code is easier to read, understand and maintain than bad code. Good code is concise, accurate, and well structured. It uses commands, proper indentation, and clear notations. It is easy to collaborate on. Bad code is difficult to read, understand, and maintain. It may be randomly written, inconsistent, or have too many parameters. Bad code can also be unpredictable, meaning it may stop working at any time. Here, some of the characteristics of good code and bad codes are: good code is uses build-up patterns, immutable data structures, and avoids implementation details. The bad codes having the characteristics of copies code, has nested conditional logic, and may have too many parameters. Some tips for improving code include designing well abstracted components, encapsulating complex condition checking, removing setters, and using event sourcing. The next topic is meaningful names. Meaningful names are a key part of clean code, an approach to software development that aims to make code more readable and maintainable. Here we say about method names. The method should have verb or verb phrase names like post payment, delete page, or save. The avoid mental mapping. A single letter name is a poor choice. It's just a placeholder that the reader must mentally map to the actual concept. Using the name C, then because A and B were already taken. We use the name clearly used in good code. Private date generation timestamp, private date modification timestamp, and private final string recorder. Here some examples of good code and bad code. The next one is reveal intent. The name should answer why a variable, class, or method exists, what it does, and how it should be used. Avoid disinformation. The name should not contain false clues about the scope of a variable, method, or clause. Use descriptive names. The name should provide enough context to understand a variable, class, or method's role without needing to implementation details. And finally, we have used the noun or noun phrase names for classes and object we already know. For example, address, parser, wiki page, and customer details. And use the verb or web phrase delete user entry, get user details, and save post data. Then the next topic is class names. Classes and objects should have noun or noun phrase names and not include indistinct noise words. Here the good codes are customer, wiki page, and account. The bad codes are manager, processor, data, information. It includes info. Summary. The final topic is the code is clean if it can be understood easily by everyone on the team. The clean code can be read and enhanced by a developer other than its original author. The outcomes achieved: understanding clean code, the essence of clean code, how to solve the problems, and read like a well-written prose the entire team agrees on and focuses on the problem, simple way, easy to improve and tested. Here I include quiz. Thank you for the wonderful opportunity to share my thoughts. Once again, thank you.